21-year-old Isabella Comas went missing on January 11th. A turquoise alert was put out for Isabella.
Imagine this. A 21-year-old woman climbs into her red Hyundai Sonata on a bright Sunday afternoon in Avondale, Arizona. She waves goodbye to a friend, says she's heading to meet the man in her life, and drives off into the desert sun. That's the last time anyone sees Isabella Comas alive. What follows is one of the most disturbing missing persons cases Arizona has seen in years, because less than 24 hours later, that same Sonata is caught on surveillance cameras, hundreds of miles away in the remote mining town of Globe, being driven not by Isabella, but by the very man police would later name their sole person of interest. The car is eventually found abandoned in Phoenix, its interior soaked with a horrifying quantity of her blood. The front passenger seat is completely missing. Trunk lining ripped out like someone tried to hide something. And yet, and this is the part that still keeps people awake at night, that same man, Tommy Rodriguez, was charged with nothing more than theft of means of transportation and criminal damage. He sat in jail for nearly 2 months, posted bond, and walked free on March 9th, 2026, fitted with nothing but an ankle monitor and ordered to surrender his passport. How does a person of interest, caught behind the wheel of a blood-drenched car belonging to a missing woman, get to go back to his life with nothing but an electronic bracelet and a piece of paper saying, "Stay in the state"? That question hangs over every single development in this case, like a shadow. And today, more than 75 days later, Isabella is still gone. No body, no answers. Just questions that get darker the deeper you look. This is the story of Isabella Comas. And it begins, like so many tragedies, on an ordinary afternoon that should have ended with her laughing at work the next day. Isabella was 21 years old, 5'3", 110 pounds, with the kind of bright pink hair that made her easy to spot in a crowd. She had brown eyes that friends said lit up when she smiled, and a quiet determination that had already carried her through early adulthood in the Southwest Valley. She lived in Avondale, worked a steady job, and was the kind of young woman who showed up for her friends, literally. She had a standing routine of picking up one of her closest girlfriends for their shared shift. That reliability is what first sounded the alarm. On January 11th, 2026, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Isabella left a friend's house near 111th Avenue and Buren Street. Surveillance video from a nearby Quick Trip captured her in a white t-shirt with a black logo, moving with purpose. She told people she was on her way to meet her boyfriend, or at least the man police have described as someone she had a recent romantic connection with. What she didn't know, or perhaps couldn't have known, was that this meeting would be the last chapter anyone could account for in her life. She never made it to work the next day. She never picked up her friend for that shift. Her phone went silent, and when family and friends couldn't reach her, panic set in fast. Avondale police were notified, and on January 13th, a turquoise alert was issued across Arizona. The description was heartbreakingly specific. Hispanic female, pink hair, last seen driving a 2011 red Hyundai Sonata with Arizona plate 2EA6LW. But that car, had already begun its own ghost journey. In the early morning hours of January 12th, between roughly 1:30 and 3 a.m., surveillance cameras in the Globe area, more than 100 miles east of Avondale, captured the Sonata moving through the darkness. The driver, a man police would later identify through video, phone data, and other evidence as 39-year-old Tommy Rodriguez. Rodriguez was not a stranger to Isabella. Police have consistently referred to him as her boyfriend or romantic partner. Isabella's own mother, however, has pushed back hard in interviews, calling him a stalker rather than a partner, someone who had inserted himself into her daughter's life in ways that left the family uneasy long before that January afternoon. Whatever the exact nature of their relationship, Rodriguez was now behind the wheel of her car, driving it through the remote stretches of Gila County, while Isabella herself had already vanished from the face of the earth. The Sonata eventually turned up abandoned in Phoenix, near 67th Avenue and Indian School Road. When Avondale police opened it, what they found inside was the stuff of nightmares. A large quantity of blood, so much that investigators openly stated it was consistent with a life-threatening injury that, if left untreated, could very well have been unsurvivable. The blood was later confirmed to belong to Isabella. The front passenger seat had been removed entirely. Sections of the trunk lining were torn out, as if someone had desperately tried to conceal evidence or perhaps transport something they didn't want seen. The car itself showed fresh damage. It looked, in the words of one officer, like a crime scene on wheels. And yet for weeks the only charges filed against Rodriguez were theft of means of transportation and criminal damage related to that very car. No kidnapping, no assault, no homicide, just car theft and vandalism. He was arrested on January 15th and held in the Maricopa County Jail. But on March 9th, after posting two $25,000 bonds, he walked out. The conditions of his release? An ankle monitor, that machine the public keeps referencing, and the requirement to surrender any passports he possessed. He pleaded not guilty to the vehicle charges. Court hearings for those counts and for an alleged probation violation tied to earlier cases were set for April. To understand why so many people find this infuriating, you have to look at Rodriguez's past. Court documents and police reports paint a picture of a man with a documented history of violence. There are prior convictions involving stalking. There's a probation violation where he allegedly threatened to cut a victim's husband into pieces. More recently, in 2024, a police report obtained by Arizona media named him in connection with the sexual assault of a 15-year-old girl at his apartment in Tolleson. The teen and her family were reportedly stunned to learn he had been able to post bond in the Comas case at all. Police have been careful with their language. Rodriguez is still only a person of interest, not an official suspect in Isabella's disappearance. They say the investigation is active, that the FBI has stepped in, and that they are pursuing every lead. But as the days turned into weeks and then into months, the public frustration boiled over. How can the man seen driving a blood-soaked car belonging to a missing woman be released back into the community with nothing but an ankle monitor keeping tabs on him? Isabella's parents have spoken out publicly since his release. Their voices roar with a mixture of grief and anger. They've pleaded with the public for any information, any tip, no matter how small. They've expressed deep concern about Rodriguez walking free, even under monitoring. One parent told reporters they lie awake, wondering if the man police believe was the last to be with their daughter is now simply going about his days while their child remains missing. Meanwhile, the search for Isabella has continued without pause. Volunteers have combed areas around Globe and Phoenix. Tips have poured in and been chased down. Her cell phone was eventually located at a recycling center, another eerie detail that raised more questions than it answered. But as of early April 2026, more than 2 months after she was last seen, there is still no sign of her. No body. No definitive proof of what happened in the hours after she left that friend's house on Van Buren Street. Police have said they believe, based on the volume of blood and the condition of the car, that Isabella likely suffered a catastrophic injury. Yet they also hold out a thread of hope that she could still be alive, perhaps being held somewhere or somehow having escaped harm. That hope is what keeps her family going. That hope is what keeps the public sharing her photo and begging for tips. But the disturbing reality remains. A young woman, with her whole life ahead of her, stepped into her car on a sunny January afternoon and simply disappeared. The man tied to that car through surveillance and physical evidence spent weeks in custody on minor charges before walking free under the lightest possible supervision. And the desert outside Phoenix continues to hold its secrets. If you know anything, if you saw the red Sonata in Globe that night, If you remember seeing Isabella or Rodriguez together in the days before or after January 11th. If you have any information at all about where that missing passenger seat might have gone or what happened inside that car. Avondale police are still taking tips. The FBI is involved. Every lead matters. Because somewhere out there, Isabella Comas deserves to be found. Her family deserves answers. And the questions raised by this case, about how the justice system weighs evidence, about how dangerous a person has to be before the system treats them as the threat they appear to be, those questions aren't going away. This is not just a missing person story. It's a story about what happens when the evidence screams one thing and the charges say another. It's about a red car, a lot of blood, and a young woman who never came home. And until Isabella is found, the story isn't over.